Good evening. This is Avraham Shira from Eretz Israel. We've been learning in our daily Patreon class from Rebbe Nachman about the pulse of creation. That just like a human being has a pulse, so too does the creation. And of course, that means the Creator. And he explains to us that God has a name, his ephemeral, internal name, Yud, K, Vav, K, Yud and Hey, Vav and Hey. If you know the Hebrew letters, you're familiar with them. Those 4 letters are spelled in 12 different ways. And each of the 12 hours of the day and the 12 hours of the night have one of those spellings in charge of it. And he goes on to tell us further that each hour has 1,080 portions, which if you divide 1,080 into 3,600 seconds, you come up with 3.3 seconds. What does this teach? Every 3.3 seconds, there's also a change in the spelling of God's name, pulsing into creation, life force from the infinite into the what we call the Shtalshlut Olamot, the wiring of creation, and into the physical realm. So every 3.3 seconds, there is a beat, a rhythm established in creation. And each of those 3.3 second periods has a different spelling of God's name in charge of it. It's actually shaping the infinite energy into a conduit, because each of God's names and the spellings of those names are different shaped conduits. Okay? Just like you can have a pipe that runs the water this way or that way, so too God's name runs the energy through the channels of the forms and the shapes of the letters. And so you have Yud and Hey, and Vav and Hey is the classic name that almost everybody knows about. Anybody in religion, whether Christian or Muslim, otherwise is familiar with this, the eternal name that Jews don't say out loud, because when you say one of God's names, you're calling to him. And you know, it's like if I saw you on the street and I said, hey Joe, you know, that's not the way we talk to God. You know, that's the way we talk to our friends on a good day. But when we're talking to Hashem, it should be with reverence and respect and awe. So we don't say those names unless we're in that act of prayer. All right. So each of these 3.3 second periods has a different spelling. And so that goes on throughout the course of the day and the night. And thus we have the pulse of creation. Now, in our meditation classes on Patreon, on YouTube, I'm doing meditations all the time, and we're trying to establish a breathing rhythm. And that breathing rhythm is a way of restoring healthy thinking. Because when we breathe slowly, evenly, smoothly, we start to think differently. And when we think differently, we get our thoughts under control. And when our thoughts are under control, the outside world cannot penetrate us the same way with all of the crazy thinking that's going on out there in the world today. So when we learn to establish the rhythm of our own breath to parallel the breath, the pulse of creation, then you become a conduit for that life force and a shape, a form that God's energy can enter and express itself into the world. And that's a major idea. That's a huge idea. I don't care if you're Jewish or not. I mean, the rhythm is the same for all of creation. And the Kabbalah teaches us the standard that you have these 12 hours, you have God's name shaping each of the hours, and then within each hour, those 1,080 pulse beats. Okay? And now, if you take it to a higher level of meditation, your mind is clear and you're able to see God's name in your third eye, in your mind's eye, which we also practice in our meditation classes, then you can see the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey. And then you change the spelling. And then you spell it the next way. Yud and Hey and Vav. And so on and so forth through all the list of 12 different permutations. Now, each of those names, it's the same name, but it's shaping the light a little differently. And when your heart gets sensitive enough, you can really feel it. And when you can feel that, then you know that you are in connection with the pulse of the creator of the universe. And you sense that, he's not far away. He's so close to us, we don't even know it. That's the big surprise, folks. The big surprise is that God is not far away in the universe. Is that he's in our blood, and he's in our thoughts, and he's in our feelings. And we have to make that discovery. And so this is one of the ways that we do that, through learning to pace our thoughts, our breathing, our pulse. And when you can do that and attach it to these permutations of God's name, then you become the address of God's presence in the world. And that seems to be a pretty good ambition. So I want to bless all of you to breathe slowly at 3.3 second intervals, and to try to see Hashem's name, and to chant to yourself the name that we say out loud, Aleph, Daled, Nun, Yud, Adonai. That name we're allowed to say, because then we're distancing ourselves a little bit from the idea of the creator to the idea of the master. And that is a little shift that we make in order to have respectful distance to the infinite light. And we need that respectful distance of Aleph, Daled, Nun, Yud. Calling God our master is not the same as calling on the infinite reactor energy of the real, well, I want to say, fusion reactor of creation. But that's kind of like what's happening. That's for another time, another talk. But God bless all of you. I wanted to share that with you, but you can check us out every day. Rebbe Nachman has new ideas that are coming down from all over the world of Torah, and he puts it in ways that we can understand in our own language, and we can learn that together. And we're doing it every day on Patreon, so look for us over there and on all the other platforms. And we'll be advertising new classes. Like I said, we're on Web Yeshiva on Thursday nights at 9 o'clock. We're going to be learning about kingship. And at 1 in the morning, we'll be doing more meditations on the lighthouse, and we'll be continuing. So God bless all of you, and have a great week.